If you scroll out and you see that this is happening to you, like your mesh is glitching, this is what is called C-fighting. This is when the back face and the front face are fighting with each other because they're too close. But sometimes they're too close or on top of each other, and this happens, and that's fine. You just have to spread them a little bit apart. But we know for a fact that our mesh is 2 units apart. So when I come here, it starts glitching. I know it's not a problem with the actual mesh. So what you want to do is press on this little camera, press Ctrl A to jump from the channel box to the attribute editor. The attribute editor is basically the same thing as the channel box, but with more options. It's like the advanced options of the channel box. And then we want to come into clipping plane. This problem is always resolved with the clipping plane. So if you press 1, I don't have it no more. My clipping plane was too small. So that's why I was having C fighting. So, but if you increase this too much, let's say 10, you're going to see that if I get close enough, I'm going to start cutting into the mesh. That's what the clipping plane does. So if I'm here and I put, let's say 100, I start clipping way before I get close. So if I need to do any detail work close to the edges, then I won't be able to do it for the simple reason that the clipping plane is too big. So what I want to do is make it 1, and I'll test that I can still work really close, and I'm good. So now that I have my wall, I want to create my second wall. My second wall, remember, it's a little bit bigger. So if I bring in my reference sheet, see that it's a little bit bigger. So now we have the front one, and we want to make the second one. It's double the size. So I got 2 options. Create a new wall from scratch or use what I have. In my experience, since this is a cube and I have the dimensions in my head, I'll probably just right click cube, press T, width. Since this was 200, the other one is going to be 400, height 300, depth 2, and I already have my wall built up. But then I still have to center pivot, move the pivot, freeze, transformation, and all that. And this one is already has these, right? So what I want to do, and that will go into the next tool, is I could Control D to duplicate my selection, or if you come to edit, you can just duplicate. And since I have a duplication, they're on top of each other. So if you want to hide one of them, you press H for hide. If you want to bring them back, you go to the outliner, press H back. So right now this one is hidden. So now I'm working with my duplicate. If you don't see the outliner by any reason, you go to Window, Outliner, and it will pop up. It will pop out probably in a window or like stuck in the menu here. So now that I'm working with my duplicate, I want another one because this is a 200 size wall. So then I'll do another duplicate, right? And I'll move it to the side. Now I have 2 walls next to each other. So what I want to do is I want to grab this wall, go into face mode. We go select the face and we press delete. Now we have a hollow wall. And I'm going to do the same thing with the first wall. Face, delete. Right? Now we have 2 walls with two open holes. If you have guessed what I'm gonna do is basically merge these two. The reason I deleted the two faces was because when you merge the vertices, if you have faces, the vertices are not going to merge correctly. So then when you do a split or when you try to do any other modifications, you're gonna have a lot of errors. So what you want to do is, now that you have these two faces open, you always, for the most part, want to merge open faces. That way it's a nice merge. So now we're gonna do the same trick we did before with the pivot, and we're gonna place our pivot. We're gonna select this time the x-axis, and we're gonna shift and click on this vertex, and then press D again. Now our pivot is going to be on this corner. So now I'm free to move my mesh. I can come in with spacebar and go to the front. By the way, Maya, after 2016 or 15, changed the way the views look, which I think is horrible. For the most part, I like working like this, that you can only see your meshes. I also sometimes I turn off my grid. This is a custom grid, by the way. This is not the grid that you always get. The way you change your grid, I know we're jumping from one thing to the next, but things come up while I explain it. Plus on my screen you're gonna be seeing it different. But the way you modify the grid is you go to display, grid, and then you can change the colors of your grid if you need to, and the subdivisions. And I have mine set up to 10, 5, and 5 because it's easier for me to work on this grid units because it matches somewhat Unreal. So if I put my origins at 0, 0, 0, I know that the next snapping point is going to be 5. And after that, it's going to be 10. So in increments of 5, it's easier to work. So this is why my grid looks like that. But now that I explained the grid really quick, now that I have these, see that I can move it. If I press X, you'll see that I can snap into the grid. I'm snapping into the grid, you just don't see it. But there's another hotkey that I could press. I could press V. V snaps to the nearest vertex. So if you just want to do it, press on the X, press V, and then you snap it to the first vertex or edge that you see. And now these two edges are exactly in the same position. So now it's easier for you to merge them. So again, if I come over here and I press V and snap it, you see I can snap straight. If I want to snap it to this one, the same thing. Select, snap, select, snap. I want to snap it to the one on the top. I'll press the Y axis, V, snap. See how I'm snapping? So that's how you snap meshes together or vertices. You could do this with vertices, faces, and edges. They all snap the same. V is for snapping to verts or snapping to the nearest object. X to the grid. And then there's another one, C, for curve, but we're not gonna do that currently. Now that we have our two meshes, in order for us to merge the vertices, we have to make it one. Again, this is the idea that you can grab different meshes and build something and then merge them into one. How I was explaining before, the way you make the walls or you make the buildings or complex objects. We'll grab both. To grab both, you click on one, press shift and click on the other. And then you go into mesh, combine. That way, you know that they're combined, but they're not fully combined because we haven't merged the vertices. And this option is also on Shift, right click, combine. I use this one a lot. I don't even go into the menu. Then you right click and we're gonna go into vertex mode. In vertex mode, I'll select every single vertex. Basically, by selecting is click and drag. Select everything and we're gonna merge all of these verts. So edit mesh and merge. And if you see now, if I go into vertex mode and I select one of these verts and move it, you see that it's only one vert that I'm moving, not many. If I was to go before I merge them, you can see I still had it separate. By the way, anything that you do and you made a mistake, you can press Ctrl Z to go back. So now I'm gonna merge them since I went back and they're separated. I'm gonna go back, select all of them, and I'm gonna do it instead of going into the menu, Shift right click, merge vertices, merge vertices. And that's how I merge the vertices. Now, if I wanted to delete this edge, I could because it's one full mesh. So now if I grab these and shift right click, delete edge, I could delete the whole edge and it's basically one full mesh. But I'll leave it there because I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking of, I'm gonna leave this line here because if I have a tileable texture, I could basically tile this texture and this texture in my UV map. But now that we have the wall, we're gonna organize the outliner. So what I want to do first is delete all the history. And you see that all the nodes that were there before got deleted. That was because all those nodes were created because of the history of this one single wall. So now that we have the wall, you see that the pivot is on the end. So you press D again. If you don't press any axis, it's just going to stay in the same orientation but move to the clicked edge or vert. So I'm gonna click on the vert and it's going to just translate over there. And then I'll press D and I'll press X to snap into the grid. And if I want to get precise, then I'll go into the front view and snap it to the X and I'm done. If you want to turn on the grid or turn off the grid, these are what these buttons are for. So you can turn off the grid. And then if you want earlier, I took off all the faces. So these are display modes. Display modes, if you press 1, it's gonna be the current one that you are always working in. The current one that you're always working in. 2 is smooth preview with the cage of your previous view. And then 3 is soft preview mode, but without any cage. So you're not gonna see your actual mesh. And then 4 is gonna be just wireframe. And then 5 is wireframe with your faces. That's how you do that. On the next video, we are going to go further and model in the next these, because what I'm thinking of is this is just a texture, this is just a texture, and then this is another texture, and this is another texture, since they're the same size. Then if I want to add all these detail, I could add it afterwards, but these are textures. So we are basically done with these 4 walls. Then we're going to create these pillars and then these. See you in the next video. Another program that I forgot to talk about was PureRef. PureRef is a program to add your reference images and like on your screen. It's pretty simple. I use it a lot when modeling because I always have my references in another monitor. It's easy to use and it's free. You just go to pureref.com, you press get whatever version you want, and then it's gonna ask you if you want to contribute. If you want it for free, just press custom, and then if you scroll down, you'll see that they'll want to charge you. But if you press 0, you can just download it for free. Once you open this program, you're gonna get a blank canvas. All you need to do is go into the folder that you have your reference images in. Even if you download it straight from Google, click and drag and drop it. And then this program will basically let you, if in your mouse, if you scroll back, you can scroll out, you could see your reference images and you can apply as many as you want. So you can add as many as you need and the canvas will keep growing and growing. So it's a pretty nice program if you're using a lot of references. The way you navigate in it is if your scroll wheel, if you click on your scroll wheel instead of scrolling, you can pan. If you right click on the window, it will move the whole window. You can lock the window by right clicking. You have this menu and you can lock the window. Control W is the shortcut, but you can lock the window. If you lock the window, I can't move it. So if I right click, I won't be able to move the window. If I press Control W, I unlock the window. There you go. It's unlocked. And if you click, left click, regular click, you can select multiple and move your images. You can also scale your images and rotate your images. And if you press Shift, it'll increment in 45-degree angles. So 45, 90. And I use this a lot when it comes to my references. You press delete and delete an image, and the same thing, you can just continue adding. You can also leave it transparent to mouse, which basically lets you work on a program and have the references on screen. And you can also put it always on top so that it never goes behind. So if I grab, let's say I have this image and I want to work on Maya, if I click on it, Maya is going to come to the front. But if I grab the window, the mode, and put it always on top, it don't matter if I work on Maya, my reference is still going to stay there. So it's a pretty neat program for references.